I think before we officially get started, we have the agenda, but because we only have Josh for the hour, I think that we'll briefly kind of go over his report that Jihan sent out to everyone just an hour or two ago. We have 9, perfect. So we'll go over Josh's report very quickly. I think that we have a lot to get to tonight, and we might even just kind of continue map talking a little later, but I think that I want to be cognizant that we probably should take some time to digest and really think about kind of this first map starting point before getting into it too much. We do have a lot to kind of get through. So we have 9 people. Yes, we have 9 people. I will call to order. So as let's just jump into Josh, and then we'll kind of backtrack and go come back to some of these other things.
Okay, for the mapping meetings this week, those were going to be Wednesday and Thursday?
Yes, for people who wanted to do that. I've heard from Brenda and I think I'm going to send out the emails. Brenda and I will come on Wednesday, and it looks like Maritza and Colleen will do Thursday. I don't have times yet from everyone else. I will touch back with them and let you know who to expect and when.
Please get me times as soon as you have them so I can get them on my calendar so I don't double book myself.
Right, I think what I had said was Wednesday at 1, Thursday at 3, I believe.
1 Thursday at 3. Okay. We'll make sure both of those are on my calendar and when I'm ready for them. Okay, so what I sent out today is a sort of draft plan A. And if the commission wants to work off of it, that's fantastic. If the commission wants to do something different, that's fantastic as well. This was my first attempt to sort of accumulate the list of priorities that was on the Google Drive and translate that into something of a map. So as you can see, the District A there is pretty much exactly the majority minority district that appeared in the VRA supplemental report that I did when I drew the district based on the election districts. So the one constraining portion of that district was that it started at the south, and so in order to go from there, I needed to sort of use a spoked hub sort of method of going about it, which then creates, if you notice in the report, there's like a sort of page about the nexus where all of them meet, and uncertainty that I had that was the best way of going about it. Fortunately, that area has a relatively low population density, as most of it is the downtown area, which is just not as much of a residential area as many of the other areas of the city. But and then the other constraining factor was using the shapes of the election districts and the numbers that provided. I'm more accustomed to using a scalpel, and this felt like I was using something a bit larger and duller, but it is what it is. So the next district would be, actually, can I share my screen real quick, and I can just...
Yes, I was just going to ask you to share your screen.
Yeah,
Thank
so we
you.
can have a visual there. So I'm going to go ahead and, okay. There. So we can see the map here. Now, my sort of guiding parameters here, let me just go ahead and pull them up, were the neighborhood boundaries as near as I could tell what they were. And there's some of these neighborhoods have sub-boundaries like Tip Hill as part of our west side. And I know that this is not the totality of the neighborhoods within Syracuse, but this is what I got from feedback, and somebody had sent me a map off of Wikipedia that had the traditional neighborhood boundaries. Now, because the election districts don't really jive very well with the neighborhood boundaries, actually being able to use those, follow those more closely wasn't entirely possible, but I digress. Oops, that was the wrong one. So let me keep the neighborhoods up. So this District B here is sort of the West Side Lakefront district, and really my priority there, aside from keeping the numbers tight, was trying not to chip into this Washington Square neighborhood. This lower portion here was just necessary because literally this entire area of lakefront is one election district. I'll pull up the districts again. That stretches, so that's the border of the election district, and it's very large geographically, and so there was little that I could do about that. So District C here was an attempt to sort of not split up Washington Square, as well as to keep Washington Square and North Side together. And Sedgwick is in there. Near Northeast needed to be split in this plan in order to get the population deviations to work out. Although if that was near Northeast being split into 3 different districts, if that was an issue, then some of this can be moved around in various different places. But one of the things I found out pretty quickly is to avoid splitting one place, you'll end up splitting another. And sometimes avoiding one split causes you to make 2 splits. And so it kind of like, it can get out of control like that. It can snowball. This was my attempt to split the least, basically. So District D here would be sort of the east side, or Eastwood, Salt Springs, near Northeast, Lincoln Park. And I wasn't able to use 690 as a boundary as I would have wanted to there, but that actually didn't work out being so terrible. Let me actually just see what I've got pulled up here. Oh, this is population deviation. Let me just manipulate this for a second and I can show you specifically why. Why I pulled this district south below 690 in the way that I did. That's fine. To normalize it by voting population. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and deselect the plan A. There we are. And so here in sort of Salt Springs, one of the things that I saw is we had, and it had been identified in the demographic and deviation report, that there was another sort of geographically concentrated African-American population here that I wasn't super keen on splitting. And so if we look at the election districts here, and I'll try and make them actually more visible. You know, we had a lot of options in here to sort of include things in that sort of way, but not a lot of good options to not split that section. And so this portion here that sort of branches down in here is kind of a reflection of that. And then, you know, District E here is basically the rest of the city, the Syracuse University neighborhood area, and, you know, Westcott, Scott Home, Meadowbrook, and, you know, going down the side of South Valley that's on the other side of 81 and things along those lines. And so, yeah, I mean, like I literally made a punch list of like, circled the neighborhoods that, you know, people had requested try to put together, and then created another list of neighborhoods that shouldn't be together, and, you know, went about it that way. And this is kind of what I came up with. There's, you know, there's not a, beyond that, there's not a ton of, you know, a ton of like calculation that went into it. Let's see. So I mean, I think that's kind of the walkthrough. Are there any questions, or does anyone want to see something closely, or can I, you know, I mean, I know it's a lot to sort of take in all at once.
Yeah, could I see District 4 closer? What color is that color?
The
'Cause
green
I
one?
can't. 4?
Well,
You
yeah,
say
yeah.
what color?
The one that we were calling 4 before in this plan is just called A, because I wanted to get, there was a request that we just not sort of present the numbers so that people didn't equate the draft and proposed districts with the current ones. But yeah, this green one right here would be 4. And that's the same neighborhood, that's the same district that was drawn in the supplement to the VRA report when I just tweaked the lines to conform with the election district boundaries. So is there a portion of that that you'd like to see?
I'd like to see the, where do you lump the college in it at?
The college is on the other side of I-81, so the college is
Mhm.
not in that district at all.
College, no, I don't mean the college, I mean the housing, I'm sorry, I said college. The housing of colleges, like, that'll be Comstock.
Yeah, Comstock is over
Avenue.
here in E.
Okay.
So this is Comstock Avenue right here. And then this is the university over here.
Mhm.
Throw the neighborhood boundaries back up there.
And we have,
Yeah. and
okay,
This is East Genesee, right up here at the top.
let's see. Yeah, there was a concern of Brighton, if you heard some of what was the last conversation with the seniors that were at our last meeting. So Brighton Ave, up toward the cemetery is something that they, and I'm not opposed to it really, but they said that they don't feel that they're in 4, they're more like on 3, I want to say she was talking about, because they have more in common, more shared interests. So what is your Brighton
Well,
Avenue?
okay, so the neighborhood of Brighton is over here. But the cemetery is over on this side of the street. This side of where? Let me actually pull up a Google map and figure out.
Josh,
Yeah.
this is Babette. If you look down, where it says like Moore, Berwyn, Benedict, the cemetery is right in there.
Moore, Berwyn.
But bring your little hand back over a little bit.
Left or right?
Bring it to, it's my left, because I'm facing the screen. So maybe you're right. Yep. Go up a little. There you go. Right around there is where the cemetery is, right across the street.
Okay, so Brighton
Yeah.
Place is right here.
Yeah.
Brighton Ave is right here. Oh, okay.
Yes.
So to this side. Yeah. So this is in the that's in the same district that the college is in, and with Westcott, Scott Home, Meadowbrook, University Hill, Skytop. So that would be right over here. So the old District 4.
Yeah, Josh, this is Tony. I was just going to say, District A looks like it's a combination of formerly District 3
3
and
and 4, yeah. And 3 was down south here further, and 4 was up north more.
correct.
Yeah, so that area here is actually in neither the current 3, the 3 or 4 type of thing. It was more in, let me actually just look up I think I have them on here.
And Josh, what's the deviation of population between the 5 districts now that you've drawn?
Okay, right now
Or margin of error?
the highest deviation is 1.98%, and the lowest is negative 1.51%. So they're very close. B is the only, the District A there has 594 more people than perfect, and District C has 453 people less. And I'm using the election districts, I'm not sure we can get a lot closer without drastically changing some things, yeah.
That's where my question came into play, is the election districts. Are we beholden to those lines?
According to the local law that created the Redistricting Commission, yes.
Okay.
What about
No,
to,
go ahead.
to follow up on Jason's comment? I've heard precincts, election districts, and wards, and some of this granularity that we could get into small shifting is allowed, and some of it isn't. And what you're saying is that we might be able to shift and split up wards and precincts, but not election districts.
Well, in common parlance, the precinct is an election district.
Okay.
The wards were drawn based on election districts from many years ago and have sort of a static. Actually, the wards should also conform to election districts, but may contain more than one election district. My understanding is that the wards are utilized on a political committee level for committee representation within the Democratic Committee and the Republican Committee, which means that they have to be kind of based on the election districts in order to be able to calculate their weighted vote, because they need the number of registered voters in each one of those. So wards, election districts, and precincts are all related. Your precinct is typically refers to the polling location. The election district is the ED drawn by the Board of Elections, and then the ward is a election district or collection of election districts used within the political party's sort of inner workings.
What's the possibility, and maybe this is a more political question, of the commission saying to whoever is in charge to do the job that we could best want to do in terms of distribution and neighborhoods and the like, we need some changes and flexibility in the precinct definition. And can that be done with enough quickness for us to do what we want to do? As you said, in that upper area where there's, you want to include Washington, the Washington Square area, but you can't.
There's this area here that I think should probably be
Yes.
probably should be included with Washington Square, and then down here, this area right in here in Westcott and Scottholm, that could be done a lot more strategically and surgically if the election districts were shaped differently, or if we weren't beholden to them. The census blocks are much more granular and will allow you to make a lot more fine sort of tuning and distinctions. Whether the commission could get that change made in time is kind of a Jeff question. They would have to change the local law, which means at minimum they would have to introduce it at one meeting, hold a public hearing, and then vote on it in the next meeting. So you're probably looking at 2 months.
2 months.
In the legal process to be able to change that.
Gotcha.
I feel like when we had Dustin Zarni, this is Molly talking. I feel like when we had Dustin Zarni come all the way back in the beginning, I remember him specifically saying, yes, please don't split up any wards, but he talked about, and I can't remember now, exactly what he was saying, but that the election lines or the lines would have to be redone anyway, and to not worry about that. And so I wonder if this is something that he could shed some more light on.
Well, see,
for us.
The thing is after redistricting, all of the election districts have to be redrawn to facilitate the elections in the place. And they're
Right.
drawn in a way so that you can create a ballot for overlapping sort of political districts, right? So a person who votes in a place needs a ballot that has their congressperson, assemblyman, senator, county legislator, and their common council representative on the same ballot. And so election districts are drawn in a way so that you can draw up the proper ballots for the proper people who live in every place, which means after every redistricting cycle, those election districts need to be changed anyway. One of the issues is that the election districts aren't drawn based on the 2020 census blocks. They're drawn on the 2010 census blocks. And since the block shapes change, the election districts split census blocks and things along those lines. They're drawn using different methodologies. So if you want to use the property boundary of the parcels behind a house for an election district, that's fine, but that's not possible with a census block. And also, they're used generally to have roughly the same number of registered voters in them so that you can, evenly divide the load on the election days to be able to administer the election. But the number of registered voters in a place is loosely correlated to the number of people that live there, but depending on who's registered to vote, how many children there are, things like that, they're definitely not drawn based on the demographics or population of the areas. And so using the election block, a district as your building blocks for a redistricting plan is in many ways putting the cart before the horse. And they are going to have to be redrawn, but the fact remains that the law that's on the books in the city of Syracuse requires it. I would definitely, I mean, it was my sort of recommendation that the commission consider in its final report recommending changing that law, as it makes, you know, making these granular sort of changes much, much more difficult.
The president of the Common Council has been to a number of our meetings. Is there any way we could speed up the process so that it this can be done in 2 months, and the type of changes that you'd recommend if you had flexibility, or that we'd want if we had flexibility, could be legal? And would that be something that you and Molly can start the ball rolling with the people that have supported us? Now we'll give them a way to support us even more.
I mean, I think what it's all going to come down to is the actual legal requirements to be able to pass the local law. I believe it has to be introduced it can't be introduced and voted on in the same session, and I also believe it needs a public hearing. So I don't know when the Common Council's next meeting would be, but you're legally confined to the minimum amount of time being a month from whenever that next meeting is, because they need to, you know, read it in, have a public hearing, and then vote on it. So, I mean, I think it's worth reaching out and asking if that's possible, but I'm doubting that it is, given the legal requirements of how a law has to be passed.
Josh, in some jurisdictions, if I may, in some jurisdictions, the hearing is on the same day as the second meeting, and if there's no controversy at the hearing, they can move the matter.
Yeah, that's why I said a month from the next meeting that they have.
Right.
They have to introduce it then, yeah.
So Josh, I'm sorry. Josh, this is Tony again. So just to clarify, this map A, does violate
No,
us or no?
no, it uses the election districts. The only time where the election districts are split in this is when election districts split census blocks.
Yeah.
I use the census block.
So it doesn't. So it does. So it
Yeah,
does not.
no, it does, because the language in the local law is as much as possible, and it's not possible if the election district splits the census block.
So it might not be necessary for us to go that route with this current map.
That would be a Jeff question. It would be risky to ignore that provision. Personally, I don't think that the provision is good and should be in there,
Right.
you know, but you got to play the hand you're dealt, you know?
Yeah.
If it's possible to have this changed within a month, I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't develop. I mean, I could also do a second map that's parallel to this, even just for demonstration purposes, where you're like, this is the plan we have to recommend because of this law. This is what it would look like if we were able to use the census blocks instead of the election districts, which could strengthen the case for changing it if there's no opportunity to change it before then.
I think that would be important to have.
Yeah, I however this shakes out, if it's not possible to use the census blocks as the basis, I will make a version of the final plan of this that uses the census blocks to demonstrate the difference and how much better that can conform to neighborhoods and things along those lines.
What do other commissioners think?
I think that's a great idea.
That's very helpful.
I mean, I think it would be worth reaching out and seeing what the possibility to be able to change that would be.
So the language in the ordinance, so it's priority number 6. To the extent practicable, district boundaries should be drawn using the boundaries of existing election districts. The fact that it's number 6 and it's to the extent practicable,
Right.
Seems like we could certainly make a case that it makes a much better map.
Oh, I agree with that. I mean,
So
in terms of what the priority and the, you know, term practicable means, I would defer to Jeff on an interpretation of that, because there's a lot of this going on, this redistricting cycle, not particularly with regards to election districts, but how does practicable apply to compactness? How does practical, apply to keeping municipalities that have less than 40% of an ideal population whole? That sort of thing. But I would have to defer to Jeff's judgment on that.
Jeff, could we have you weigh in?
Oh, Mal.
Can I?
Yes,
I
I'm
was
looking for
mute.
Jeff's input.
Okay, where we have the word practicable, it means if you can, you must, but we're also balancing other criteria, and we need to have the data in a usable format. So if we can try to make the changes, sure, let's try. But if we can't, we can also show we tried to do so.
Well, so
We ran into, in one instance I can remember, we ran into resistance in the county from the Board of Elections because the proposal of the jurisdiction that was going from a at-large plan to a district plan and its governance, a town, made it harder for them to administer the election because they had to find new sites for the election and a number of other technical points. So this is where it's coming from. It's coming from, and it's a last added on. So it may be a little flexible if you push on it a little bit. I don't know.
Okay.
Can I just
Um,
again,
yes,
Mal,
Melody.
yeah, thank you. I'm sorry that I'm tardy coming from another meeting, but I do have a question on the mapping. So help me understand. There will be 2 maps available at the next meeting so people can see, because not Jeff, but Josh, he said there will be maps. Could you explain that to me again? There'll be 2 maps available, or will there just be 1 map available?
Well, I was saying since we're currently constrained by the election district boundaries, my suggestion was at the end of this, once a plan is decided, I can do a different version of that plan that uses the census blocks instead and fine tunes those changes as a contrast of this is what it could look like if we didn't use the election district boundaries, but we are bound by them now. I think it also worthwhile to reach out and see if it's possible to change that law in the time frame necessary to actually get a redistricting plan done.
I'm just pushing the law aside, which I know is a big deal, but just asking, can we just have, would it be possible to just have the 2 maps available? Because I think at this point, and help me if I'm out of pocket, guys, but people are really looking to see visual stuff. So at this point in time, can we have as much visual things available as possible? 2 maps available. This is what Josh is, I hope you're following me.
Yeah, I mean, pending whatever comes out of the sort of like informal mapping sessions we're going to do later in the week. Come Monday next week, there may be an alternate version. Things along those lines. The only thing I wouldn't want to do is I wouldn't want to put a map out there early in the process that uses the census blocks and not the election districts and have the public latch onto that and think that that's the plan and then have the map that's passed at the end of it look different because it uses the election districts and conforms to the legal process.
Out there and try to explain in detail what it is we're doing. Do you think that would help?
Yes, I mean, yeah, I can do some kind of explanation when you're ready to present something to the public as to the rationale behind. I mean, yeah, we can do talking points as to what the driving sort of priorities behind the map were and what certain
my hand, I vote for that.
Okay.
Okay. I unfortunately have to hop off. I have a public hearing I have to attend. But anyone who wants to do the mapping sessions on Wednesday and Thursday, I'll see you then. And if not, we can, we'll meet up next week and we can discuss this in much more depth.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Josh.
Thank you all.
All right, so I think we all need to digest that a little bit. I'm curious if I did get Helen Hudson like on a Zoom call or something. I'm wondering either Jerry or Jeff if one of you would be able to assist with that meeting, just to help convey, in all your fancy terms, what we're needing from them.
Jerry,
I need a little prep. I'd be happy to help you, but I need a little prep. I've been in and out. My role here, just to remind you, my role was to kind of be available. I'm emeritus. That means I'm retired. And I promised to help through this cycle because I helped create the program that we're doing, going across the state and offering to local governments. But putting that aside, and I know that I can do six syllable words where one will suffice. But if you need help and give me a little background, I'll be happy to be there with you and for you.
Thank you.
and I think it would be important to have Josh on the call, because he's the one that actually has to do this work.
Okay.
Not,
Maybe I will.
I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree with that.
Okay, so I can make an email to Helen Hudson, our president, and copy you guys, and we can hopefully maybe find a meeting that works at least for myself, Josh, and you guys would be added bonuses. What would be wonderful, and John can be on. Does that sound good? And then we can report back to everyone about what they say, what is doable. Okay. All right. We will get on that in the next day or so. Hopefully we'll have a meeting. Okay. So that being said, let's go back to the beginning of our agenda. Status updates. John, do you have anything specific that you wanted to discuss?
Right now I'm good, Molly. I barely made it into my chair from mom's house, so I'm just gonna go with the flow. I put my opinion of all this law stuff in the chat. Just that's where I stand. Okay.
Okay. And then for website, social media, Jihan, you sent out a draft flyer today. I don't know if everyone had a chance to view it, or if Jihan, you want to share your screen. We're looking for some approval or guidance input on this before we make 1,000 copies or whatever. So Jihan, the current flyer, and then some of the plans that we have discussed for languages and things like that. So the floor is yours, Jihan.
Okay, I was just figuring out where to share my screen. Okay, 1 second. Can't see anything. Okay, hold on. It's like blocking my tabs. So there's two versions that I made. One is like the main flyer with the dates. So it would have like the dates, the addresses, the times, and like a little.
Because I was being bougie on the wine. Because I
My
couldn't
main
deal with that other wine in the city, but.
So my main
Natalie,
feedback.
could you mute yourself?
So my main feedback is just like about the top part. Like, is that what people want to see? Like ask the public for. I felt like just putting city redistricting might not like come across well, so I just put a new Syracuse city map. And then the feedback, the FAQs. Yeah, so these are the two versions, and I figure we share them together and also make translations for the other 6 languages that we need.
Jihan?
Yes.
Was the map of the 5 districts, what I'm seeing now, the way it's currently drawn, is we're using that as the basis for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
Yes.
Okay.
That's like the original. I got it off the city website, so that's from the Common Council. So that's the original.
It also, just a suggestion. I'm wondering whether we ought to, not this map with all the neighborhoods, but to show people at at public meetings what it currently is, so they see the contrast, and if they have questions about where shifts have been made. It's just a suggestion. This is the map they've been used to for 20 years. And it might indicate what we've done, and that would be a springboard for questions.
Bruce got a question for you. Was that not the map that was in front of the podium the way it is now? I don't know if you had a chance to look at it, but I assumed that that was the way it was now. So we have that map, right?
We can do like an all three version. Like say there's the original, then there's like the plan A, and if there's more plans, we can try to make a big version. We don't miss it. We all don't miss it.
I like that thought, but I'm going to tell you this, Jihan. I got to tell you this: the fact that these flyers are colorful, are brighter, they're noticeable. I think that you did an excellent job. I got to tell you, and the fact that it's minimalist as far as, you know, it's not wordy. I like it. I like them both. I'm just saying, good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I didn't see the first document, Jihan. I did see the second document with the maps and the districts, and I thought this was fantastic. So kudos to you.
No problem. Okay, so I'll stop sharing my screen. Thank you. It's hard to fit everything like you want to say into it. I think Babette told me to add that you guys are not elected officials, so I'm going to try to squeeze that in somewhere. I think that is kind of important. So yeah, that's all I have for that.
And I just would add the link to like the larger FAQ or someplace else, because I think for some folks, they're going to have more questions than just what the flyer will ask. Some people just will be happy with that. But I think for people who want more information, when we start talking about civil rights and majority, like that information is not on there. So for a link for them to do a deeper dive if they want to, or direct them back to our website.
She did put a QR code on there, so that is good. I think that people can open it right up on their phone, save it, and it can go to does it go to the website, Jihan?
Yeah, so Molly suggested the QR code, so it goes to the link tree, which I feel it has all the links. I like that better. Everyone can just like go through and see.
Thank you. I can never figure out how to make a freaking QR code work, but whatever.
Scan it with your camera.
I know that, but it just never seems to go to do the right thing when I do it.
Okay. The only addition that I would have, Jihan, is on the flyer with the information in the map. Maybe just kind of like either like vertically or kind of off to the side next to the map, just saying like old map or 2010, district map, like just signifying that this isn't what we're presenting, that it's the old map.
Oh, right. Like 2010. Right?
Just say current or something like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Looks great. I love the colors. I think it's perfect for spring and summer, like John had said. So I think it's a winner.
It's a winner.
Hi, everybody. I have a suggestion that because people are confused, I think maybe we should have the word voting on there somewhere, like voting map. Because I don't know that people actually know what a district is at this point in this conversation. Just a thought.
It's a good thought too, Charles. What do you think we should have discussion on the difference between a district and a ward? What do you think?
You know what? I think we need to stay as far away from ward conversations because people are kind of stuck in that mindset. Because, for example, I used to be on the Democratic committee, and I know I know they will keep quote unquote their wards together because that's the way people on the committee keep their power. And I know like Ward 17, it does not want to be cut up, but it is what it is. So using words like ward, I think are going to be triggering.
Okay, so what do you think? So how do we define?
I mean, you could say voting district, voting map.
Okay.
Like I said, it's just an idea. I
What
mean, while we're
if
at
we
our
said-
meetings, we can always explain it again.
Charles, what if we said district election voting maps? I know it's a lot of words, but what if we said?
I mean, even if it said electoral district, I mean, at least it's got voting in there. You know what I mean?
I have to agree with you, Charles. I think people really know the difference. If you throw another word in there like electoral, that might, muddy the water a little even more. I'm with you. I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to make it simple, and so people can get.
So what do we currently say? What do we currently say?
We use the word district, but he's saying we don't define it.
Right.
And I.
So are we speaking specifically about the wording that should be on this flyer?
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
Jihan, can you?
I say district, so I say wherever lines are drawn determines who can run for public office in your district. And then I put like neighborhoods in there because I know people are like, what the heck is a district? But yeah, mostly it's like I put a new city map. I could share it again, but I say a new city map will be drawn, like a new city district map will be drawn, but I can try to fit voting in there over. I feel like it should be like 2 words minimum, not like too many, everyone needs to understand it. Plus I have to translate it in other languages, so it might not come across.
Right. So district voting.
Cards in the mail from. Does it say election district on it? I'm trying to think. What does it say? Do you guys remember? The little poll cards that come. They tell you this is your polling place. What does it say? Election district on there? I don't know. I'm making you go back. Go back in your memory banks. I don't know.
I understand, but what Charles is asking or suggesting is that define it on the flyers. So we simply say district voting maps. That way, it implies it's about voting.
And I hear you. I'm just trying to think of words that would make it simpler. That's all I'm going for. Because I agree with what he's saying. I think it's needed and necessary.
Well, the reason I was confused, I wanted to make sure we were talking about the flyer, is because we just had this whole conversation about election precincts and all of these kinds of things, and Jason's bringing up a good point in the chat here that we're talking about common council districts, and so to kind of smush it in with talking with election districts, which is not necessarily completely the same thing, that could get much more specific. And so to me, common council districts, I think it does create more confusion.
Jason's got some good points on that. Charles, are you seeing Jason is saying?
Just thinking about ways to make it simple for no confusion.
I just want to say, we don't want to bring up words or vocabulary words that aren't necessarily true to what we're doing. We're not making election polling places. This isn't where you go to vote. These are council districts. So we should keep the vocabulary to what we're actually doing. And if they have questions in regards to that, we can certainly answer them. But creating a paragraph to explain what we're doing is against what a flyer is supposed to be doing.
Totally agree. Simple. That's all. Trying to think of words
we don't really want to encourage confusion with the county and the state and all the other redistricting that's going on. Be really clear that it's the common council district.
I mean, this is not a hill I'm going to die on. I just threw it out there.
Okay.
Thank you.
We hear you.
Discussion, I'm thinking about, let's just leave it alone.
Okay. Good.
No, I think we should impale Charles on the gates of the city.
You said what? I missed
It's
that.
a joke.
Oh,
She was
okay.
just saying a joke. So, okay. So I think, Jihan, you did a wonderful job on the flyer. Thank you very much. Outside of some
Absolutely.
tiny little tweaks, it will be good to go. So for open issues, I think we should having some of our fun technical things going on tonight. This is a very good time to talk about going back to in-person meetings and what everyone's feelings on that, if we want to take a vote on that. We have a couple of snags because where we used to meet, the iLab in City Hall is not available through the month of May. So we would need to find another location. But I do think that that is helpful to maybe me meeting in person. Graham.
Is it just unavailable at this, our usual time, or is it unavailable across the board?
Across the board. It's like flooding issues. They have to reconstruct.
Flooding issues. Okay.
So like I have other like locations we had talked about, you know, like public libraries where my husband works and actually where Charles works as well. There is a great room that we would be able to have internet access and project our fine consultants up and be able to do all of the technical stuff, but it's not available on Monday or Wednesday nights. And so we need space that is either available on Monday evenings or that we would then all have to shift to a different night. So I thought this should be a conversation that we have. Yes, do we want to do in person? And then where do we do it? If we do want to do it.
This is Babette.
Well, yes.
OCPL has a great room downtown, but they're not open late on Mondays. They close at 5.
Well, then that won't work, will it?
So the janitorial staff is there. I mean, I do sit on the board. If I can see if they can let us in the building from 5 to 7, 5:30 to 7. Because I mean, people are in there, they're working. I don't know, but and it's such a great room and it's right downtown. The other place downtown might be Center States, if anybody knows anybody at Center States.
Yeah, but I'm thinking parking. That's all I'm thinking. Downtown parking at night. Perfect.
But it'd be,
So,
we're downtown anyway at City Hall. I mean, that's, I mean.
But I'm talking about down where Center State is. Center. What is it called? Center.
But it's after work too.
okay.
So first of all, I'm fine with restarting the meeting in person. Obviously, I think it would be important for us to have a place we can convene in person. And since we can't use the iLab, Babette's suggestion might be a good one if she can help us to expedite that.
Okay.
Okay, but
so,
tell me again where you're speaking of, because I must have must have missed something.
So what about OCPL, which is right on Solana Street? They have an amazing room with a great screen and technology. The only other place is on the other end of downtown, which is SUNY Metro Center. They actually have a great room in there as well. If we want to stay downtown.
Is that SUNY Oswego?
Yes.
Yes.
My only concern with the one place that you suggested, Babette, was saying that like we could like maybe talk to a custodian to see if like maybe we could stay a little bit longer. Like I would want something that
No, I
is a
wasn't going
little
to talk
bit
to a
more.
custodian. A custodian could not make that decision. I was actually going to go right to I'm on the board. I would go right to the director. A custodian could make the decision to let us in. I said the custodians are there cleaning, so it would be open anyway. I'm like, there'd be people in the building. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear, Molly.
Okay. So
are we looking to remain town mall?
What was that,
Is that the
Melody?
thought? Are we looking to remain downtown for this meeting?
That's not a criteria of mine. But I do think that, you know, it sounds like we can either try to find a place for Monday nights, and maybe that would work out with Babette's location. I have another location that would absolutely work. There's plenty of parking. It's not far out of downtown. It's on the north side, but we'd have to switch to a different night. So that's kind of the options that we're looking at if we want to do in person.
I'm sorry. I was driving through Scranton, so my reception was sketchy. But there's always the Cantor Warehouse. They have a public space, and the Salt City Market has a public space as well.
You know, they have technology, Charles, the big screen and everything for us at the public market.
I think they do have a screen. I can reach out and ask Tiffany Lloyd.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
So I
We
mean,
have our book.
there's lots of locations around the city that I think would potentially be great. I want to get away from, you know, calling around to 20 different places. I want to just kind of have a short list, and then we decide between 2 or 3 options max. So I think Babette, you getting some information on the 2 places that you were looking at, and then my place could be like a backup if none of that works, then we look at a different day just because we know we could get that, but we can kind of look at those 2 locations if that's okay with you, Babette.
Honey, I'm part of a team. Whatever you guys want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we, if anyone wants to make a motion to do a vote about going to in person, and then we can kind of have a discussion, make sure everyone's on the same page about feeling okay about doing that.
I make a motion that we in-person meetings is in the month of May, 2022.
Second it.
Anyone's second? Looks like Jay seconds. Okay. We'll have a discussion. Anyone have anything that they want to say or discuss in terms of going in person?
One thing I wanted to bring up is when we're playing with these maps, I think it'll be great to be in person doing that because we ultimately have to defend ourselves. These next round of meetings, we're not just going to be taking these questions anymore. We're going to be answering the questions. So we're going to have to defend where we're putting these lines. So we have to generally be on the same page when it comes to the reasons why we chose the lines where they are. So I guess learning and pointing and touching and playing with these maps in person will help us get the knowledge so that we know how to then defend ourselves in these public meetings. That's all.
Agree. I agree. Any other comments or discussion points for this vote?
Just a brief comment. These are going to be public meetings where the public is invited to attend as well, or not?
Have to be public meetings, yes, just like all of our meetings.
That's all. So, but part of it is triggering the advertising that goes with trying to tell people we're having these meetings.
Well, I mean, to me, the point, just like what we did before, just putting it on the city calendar, to me, I don't really see it as like a public hearing kind of thing where we want to fill the room and have all of these people. This is like for transparency purposes is how I kind of understand it, that you're allowed to kind of witness our work, but you're not necessarily allowed to be a part of it in that way. So like to me, like just putting it on the city calendar or like on our Instagram, we're having a meeting if you want to come, but it's not really to get a bunch of people. It's to be transparent if people want to watch. Larry, go ahead.
This might be a little off the topic, but when you're just looking for Monday places, we only have 2 more Mondays before we start the next round of public meetings. I think we'd have to meet several times a week. I don't think we can have only 2 more meetings and be ready with maps. So I don't think Monday night is the only evening to meet is reasonable.
That's a fair point. We might need a couple extra meetings. We certainly, I think we've been meeting every single week, and so I just imagined that would continue through the
But
month
in
of May
two,
while we're doing
you don't
this.
think two meetings is enough to be finished with the maps, do you?
Where are you seeing just 2 meetings though? Well, I guess, yeah, I guess that
Well,
is
isn't the
about that.
22nd the first meeting?
Yeah,
Is
you're
that-
right. So 1, 2. Okay, yeah. So yeah, well, I guess we would have to maybe look at other dates. So we're in the discussion about meeting in person. We can also
Sounds
add
like in
other
person
dates.
is what everybody wants. It's good.
Okay, so let's take a formal vote. All in favor of returning to in-person meetings, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We are returning to in-person.
What I was
Laura's
saying
point, yeah,
is that maybe your place and Babette's place are reasonable options.
I think that's probably fair. So the place that I have access to is now available Mondays or Wednesdays. So then we're looking at Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So I'm wondering, is there availability on maybe like a Thursday or a Friday evening for us? If we just in this month of May where we're having to crunch and get these maps done.
Thursdays, me.
Thursdays for you.
Thursdays, this is Babette. Thursdays are not good for me. I have a standing class.
Okay. Does anyone else have like a specific day that absolutely doesn't work, either Thursday or Friday? I will bring snacks, all kinds of fun things. So even if it's like a Friday night or something, like we can make it fun. Okay. Tony, are you available on Fridays or no?
Did you say Tony?
Yes.
Yes, I would
Okay.
prefer Thursday. Available.
Right. Okay.
Brenda and Jay just put in the chat that Fridays don't work for them.
Yeah, Friday's not good for me for May.
As John said, the quorum, and I agree with that. You know, there's no voting going to take place, just drawing.
Okay. All right, I will, we'll have Babette check on a meeting for next Monday at her place. I will let you guys know when there is a meeting scheduled after that on our alternative day and who can go. And I'll give the meeting details in an email. But we will be in person, which is exciting. But we will have our internet and all that set up for our consultants. So, Jeff, Josh, and Jerry can join, and Marissa.
Just to be clear, when are our next meetings?
It's going to be at least every Monday until, the 22nd. So that would be next Monday is the 9th, the 16th, and then we start our public hearings the 22nd.
Okay, so Mondays. Okay, thank you.
So at least the 9th and the 16th, those are our normal standing mandatory meetings. Extra bonus meetings. TBD.
Okay, thank you.
I will send that out. Thank you. Okay.
Not the 9th. Not the 9th. Monday, the 9th.
Not the 9th?
Well, you said the 2nd and the 16th. So you skipped the 9th. So I'm wondering, is the 9th also a meeting, right?
9th and the 16th, yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
Molly, this is Babette. I worked for the city. There are other conference rooms in the city. At City Hall, there's one up on the 3rd floor in engineering, and there's also a couple conference rooms at City Hall atrium. I mean, if we want to stay on city property and stay, near our original location.
I think that's fine. I just want to find a place for us to meet. So if we were stuck on iLab, we couldn't do iLab. If they have a specific place to ask for, to look for, then we can book it if it's available. But I would just. So Jihan, are you able to check the calendar and check the space for this 3rd floor and for the atrium tomorrow, and then let Babette know if those are even available?
Yes, I'll look out for that, and I'll do the South City one.
And I'm sending an email to Christian at the library right now just to see. But okay, yeah, I do know that there's a couple other conference rooms in City Hall. So.
Okay. We did the maps, new business, a new meeting for map making. We have to discuss the release date for the maps. It came up at the meeting. They were like, well, when are these maps coming out? And we said, oh, well, our next meeting, is May 22nd. But it was brought up after the fact that it would probably be wise to release those maps ahead of time and drum up some excitement, have people have time to digest this information so that they're coming to the meeting informed and with opinions to share with us. So we actually probably need those maps sooner even than the 22nd so that we can release them to the media and blast them everywhere. So that's something we should discuss. Jay, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I'm going to suggest the Thursday before, and the reason being is Friday is known as Bad News Dump Day, and we don't want to be buried in bad news dump day. So if we do it like Friday late afternoon in that after 2 o'clock time slot, it gives any potential local media a chance to piggyback off of whatever we're sending out, and then also gives all of Friday to get it out on their social medias, and then gives the people enough of a chance to digest it for our first meeting on Sunday. So I would suggest that Thursday afternoon would be a prime time slot if we want the most eyes and the most buzz. And that is all.
So that's Thursday the 19th is what we're looking at if we go by what Jay is saying, which is a good idea. Right. Graham, your hand is up.
I totally agree with Jason, though one hitch in that plan is that Josh is going to submit maps to us. I mean, we're going to have worked on them, but he's going to send us a final thing that then we will blast out to the world. And so we have to give him enough time to do that in order for us to be able to make a press release that goes out on Thursday. So, I mean, it just sort of depends on whether he's able to work right up to the last minute, get us something on Wednesday that we can then blast on Thursday.
Several of us will be meeting with Josh this week, so that's definitely something that we could talk to him and check with him on, just to kind of see what he's capable of doing.
Before I forget, I do want to circle back to those maps. So I know we're talking about like dates to release the maps now, but I want to come back to the actual map when we get a chance. Just a heads up.
Sure. Okay. So is it Tony?
So Graham brings up a good point. At the same time, I'm thinking he won't be creating something entirely new. We will have worked a variety of iterations, right? From starting next week through the 15th or 16th of May. So I would think that we'll have had sufficient time to create something during that time period so that it wouldn't be like he's creating something entirely or from scratch. So I'm thinking it should give him sufficient time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're totally right. I just thought, maybe his kid's got a birthday party on the Wednesday, and so life happens.
You mean he has a life? He's got a life?
Not from what I've seen. I only see this, piece of his bedroom, but
Right.
could be.
I mean, that just means we just need to make a decision faster, sooner.
Bruce, go ahead. Oh, you're on mute, Bruce.
Mute. Okay.
There you go.
Sorry. I'm I'm glad in one sense that there's only one map we could choose from, but it limits our power as a commission to consider what other options and in light of our priorities or any disagreement on those priorities. And I'm wondering whether we could ask, if not for an alternative map, at least for some of the judgments that went in, and Josh has already been open with that might lead us to make some adjustments in the map, because it seems to be that it's an up and down, an up or down vote, and I don't see where we can as a commission exert any reasoning beyond what we see on the map.
Bruce, we haven't dissected the map yet, so we haven't gotten to that part. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I wanted to bring up later on. But right now we're just talking about a date to release maps. We're not talking about the map yet. But that is a good point, and that's what I want to talk about later on.
I think you need to be mindful of the fact that when you release it, it's not just making it available. There should be a press event. There should be some drama. We worked this long, and now we have all of us work together and come to agreement, I hope and expect. And it's not just dropping a piece of paper on somebody's desk or sending out an email that you can pick this up if you're around City Hall. So it's not just a date.
Yeah, that's not the point I was making. I was making the point of it. The process seems to provide very little in the way of flexibility for us, but Jason's point is well made too. We haven't had that conversation, and that conversation might lead us to certain changes in the map that was given, and so I'm fine with that.
So maybe I should just bring up my point now, or are we still going to talk about the date?
Let me get to Larry because he also had his hand up, but we
Got
will
it.
talk about the maps. Oh, hold on, Larry, you're on mute.
I agree with Jason on his date because that's as late as practical for us to release dates and be ready by the 22nd. With that in mind, I think we should start our more than Monday meetings this week.
Okay.
I don't think we should lose this. I think when we get into Jason's other discussion on maps, and different people have already drawn several different maps, we really have a lot of digesting to do in only 2 weeks. I don't think we should wait. we should let this whole week go by.
Okay, so maybe having an additional meeting at the end of this week, and then next week starting in person and continuing on those 2 meetings. Graham?
I was just going to say to Larry that there are these so-called mapping meetings happening with Josh in small groups this week. So that's some progress towards what you're suggesting. But
I'm thinking though that everybody has a slightly different map already. Not everybody, but there's a lot of maps floating around.
Okay. So we at least definitely, I haven't heard anything like, no, let's reveal the map at the first public hearing. So it sounds like we're all in agreement that we should release the map ahead of time, Thursday the 19th at the very latest, perhaps with a show and some drama on the steps of City Hall with our beautiful map, maybe something fancy for the media, something along those lines, but we definitely want to release it early is what I'm hearing. Yes. Wonderful.
Well,
Okay.
I have a question. So
Yes,
we're talking
Charles.
about the release of the map, but I'm going to, so multiple groups of people are going to meet with Jason 2 days this week.
Yes.
And I would assume that when they meet with them, they're going to ask questions and whatever the case may be. Isn't it possible that 1 or 2 maps are going to come out of that one as well? So we have more than one map to show folks?
Well, my understanding, I mean, I'm one of the people who's meeting with Josh, and like more, it was like, I wanted to be able to be like, hey, you know, like show him my fine handiwork and be like, this is what I was thinking. And like, this is why I don't think that line should be over here. And like, he's going to get input from all of us. Because our, you know, a lot of us have put out our map. So I'm thinking that we would still, it would just inform the one map that he's making is what my impression was.
Okay.
Graham?
yeah, I think that's right. And our job in the next 2 weeks is to go from Josh suggested one starting point. There might be other starting points, but at least we can start from this, and to make tweaks and argue within among ourselves about the tweaks. My tweak is better than your tweak, or whatever. So that on the 22nd, or excuse me, on the 19th, we can have something that we as a commission feel okay saying, here's our draft. We want your feedback at this point. And it's within our rights to say, here are 2 drafts. We think these have pros and cons. What do you think? For example, I mean, we get to make up the rules, really.
Okay. So with that in mind, knowing that we have a really tight deadline here to kind of get this all under wraps, let's, you know, I'm just reading the chat. So Jay, why don't you kick us off? We can spend the last 15 minutes discussing some map talk.
Yeah. So I want to bring up, I think Josh's map is like a great starting point for all of us to look at. It's within the laws. It's not weird lines. It's got neighborhoods in it we want to be in certain districts, those kind of things. So the majority of it's in a map. What we should now be doing is brainstorming and kind of dissecting the map between the 15 of us and seeing what can or can't be changed. What line should be moved east or west or north or south? And that's what I think we should now focus our next 2 weeks on, is banging out these maps, having healthy discussions, of course, and saying, hey, maybe this neighborhood should be with this neighborhood. Those kind of conversations, I think, should be dominant of our meetings. And I wanted to kind of kick it off tonight after we had a chance to see the first map. And did anybody have any strong feelings about the map? Was there anything that you deemed totally out of whack or Was it perfect? You know, who knows? But I wanted to get that discussion rolling because those should be dominating what we're talking about in the next 2 weeks. Graham, is your hand still up?
Oh, it is. I'm sorry.
Oh, Bruce, do you have any strong
in meeting.
feelings?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
I was going to say this is why the conversation that we had earlier about wards, precincts, districts is important, because we can't make adjustments if we don't have the flexibility to make find adjustments. If all we have is sort of crude acts like attempts at recutting districts, we're gonna fail, and that's why we need to know and push on creating more flexibility in the map making process, where we could go a little bit more granular than election districts.
So since this is draft number 1, let's think big picture. Let's think big neighborhoods as opposed to like down to city blocks. Were there any like neighborhoods that should or should not be together? And Tony, go right ahead.
Yeah, so my reaction to your question initially about my reaction to the maps is that I felt like it's a good starting point, but I also thought we all know that these maps are going to have to change. They can't stay as they currently are. So this is as good a start as I can imagine.
Did you hear anything about neighborhoods though?
I was looking at neighborhoods. I grew up on the east side, so it made a lot of sense to me the way it was carved out. But that's on my experience from where I grew up. I currently live in District 3, or whatever it's called, District A in Josh's map. And that made sense to me. The way he carved out those neighborhoods made sense to me. But, I've only been in the neighborhood since 98. So somebody else who's been there much longer might have a different perspective about it. But it made sense to me. So generally speaking, I thought I think it's a great starting point, and I'm not sure that there's much that I would change when I think about.
So the neighborhoods you're most familiar with, you looked into it, dissected it a little bit, and said, "Hey, that makes sense to me."
It made sense to me. Yeah.
Awesome. That's like what we like to hear, because 15 of us are in 15 different neighborhoods. So I'm hoping we can come to something. Molly, what do you think?
What I had focused on in like my own mapping, of course, like you just kind of start with your own neighborhood. So I live technically in the second, but I lived my entire life in the first district. So what I noticed in the old map and even in Josh's new map is that the Sedgwick neighborhood is still included in District 1. And I don't think that it needs to be. District 1 was always like a little too populated anyway. We needed to fix it. But Sedgwick is a pretty affluent neighborhood, and it doesn't match with the rest of that district. And so I think that you can include the rest of that Washington Square. There was like a few little lines. Again, I don't know how it goes with like needing to do the precinct lines, but when I had done it on my own, Dave's redistricting, I included all of really the north side and cut out Sedgwick and put Sedgwick in with Eastwood, which I think is a better fit. So that was the only thing that I was going to convey to Josh. I also think that I think you had brought it up, Jason, like that, like some of the downtown area, like Franklin Square, Armory Square. I think that that is a really good fit for the second district. With Tip Hill, it's just I think that those is kind of the similar people who are living in those neighborhoods. So those were the things that I was thinking about, and I didn't necessarily see change in the map.
I agree with everything you're saying. Playing with the maps and the populations, it gets goofy with making sure we're within, the laws. I agree. Anybody else look at the maps? What'd you think, John? You're muted.
I think Sedgwick is always going to be a problem just because of where Sedgwick is relative to all the neighborhoods around Sedgwick.
I think a really good line that should be drawn is Oak Street.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Oak is the perfect dividing line to me, and it's not just because I drive up there because that's where my office is, but you know, you really see a very clear divide between the neighborhood, and I think it starts at Oak. So that's where I kept putting my line, but it's probably just my bias because that's where I'm driving around and that's where I'm seeing. So to me, I cut out Sedgwick from Oak.
See,
So let's mental note that to see when we talk to Josh this week, how, you know, what other domino effects would move if we did that. Oh, because I know that area enough where I can see what you're coming from. But yeah, when you're from that area, you live that area, you drive in the neighborhood, you have stronger feelings. John, are you off mute now?
yeah, I think I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Josh's maps have only been with us for a few hours, and I only had the time to take a cursory look at them. On their face, they look fantastic. But Molly just reminded me that there are probably things that we need to discuss making minor tweaks, because I had completely forgotten about Sedgwick and Oak Street and all that stuff. So I was just basing my opinion on what I saw today. So I think I need a couple days to really pour over those maps, and then, you know, when we hook up, hopefully at the end of this week, I can have a better idea of what to say. Because like I said, on their face they look fantastic, but there are minor tweaks that need to be made. And once we go through this process and we start having these public meetings, we're going to find out from the citizens that even more tweaks need to be made. Whether or not we won't, then we'll have to meet with Josh in between times of those public meetings, specifically from the last three. We should get enough data to realize whether or not we need to make changes to our draft maps, and then we can hit them again in June for the last two meetings and see if they agree with the changes we made. So that's where I'm at.
Awesome. I'm least knowledgeable about the south side and like the university area. Do anybody have strong feelings about those neighborhoods?
No, before we get into that discussion, if you don't mind, I was just hoping and wondering, and maybe you guys can help me out here. The individuals that came to the public meetings and voiced very strongly their concerns about different areas of the city. Do our draft map reflect their concern?
From what I've seen, about 80% of it, I would say.
Okay. See, because I haven't had a chance to look. Okay. All right.
It's the east side, like the university area, I'm just not as familiar with. So when the individuals were speaking at our last meeting in Nottingham, I just didn't know those areas as well. So I don't know if anybody saw the map and then related it to what they were saying.
Central Tech, Colvin Street area. And so because we've had limited input, I just thought that individuals who did come and voice their concern, that we made some effort to, to receive their input.
Great.
That's all.
Graham, what do you think? You're from that area.
I am from that area. I haven't really had much time. I've had meetings all afternoon, but the specific thing that you're mentioning about folks at the Nottingham meeting thought that outer Comstock should be in the same district as the university neighborhood. That is reflected in this map.
Okay.
So
also was reflected is the Washington Square concern and Eastwood. Those were the two neighborhoods that were mentioned most often in terms of being fragmented by the old map. I'd like to reiterate the issue of the small tweaks we want to make. Josh wanted to make a small tweak and wasn't allowed to because of the the way the precinct law is regarding Washington Square. So we're going to have a lot of that confrontation between what we want to do and what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I
That's
hijacked
probably-
everything.
Not at all. I think that's probably some of the conversations that we will be having throughout the end of this week and into the next few weeks is having that almost like a master list of what did we hear at these meetings and is that addressed? So maybe we can start a Google Doc and we can all collectively kind of add some of the points that we like heard and that were really emphasized at our meeting, and then we will take that and kind of just lay it over the map and make sure that we're doing that. So that we will put a link to that new doc as well, so that everyone can kind of add their notes from the meeting, be concise, and just kind of highlights, bullet points, and then we will go from there in some of our talks about this upcoming map drawing. So be diligent with looking at your email. I will send out an email as soon as I regarding a meeting for later this week for mapping, and then what the meetings will look like next week. Be diligent about your email. Okay. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Not a question, but I did add a comment to the chat that I hope everyone can take a look at.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Always good information in the chat. Make sure you look that over. Any other questions, concerns, comments?
My only thing is, I hope that whatever we come up with before we release it to the general public, it gives us at least a day or two, because I personally, once we kind of decide on something, I'm probably going to drive the boundaries just to see what it looks like, to see how much of it makes sense.
That's always a good idea, especially if you're not sure of an area or a boundary.
We rent a van, take a field trip.
Yes. Okay. Anything else? Be diligent about your emails. Any motions to adjourn? Graham makes a motion. Bruce seconds. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, we are adjourned. Look out in your email and we will see each other soon.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.